This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Square Victoria in the center of Montreal on June 25th, 2024. This past Saturday, Palestinian solidarity activists descended upon this square, which is named in honor of a British monarch, in order to establish an encampment for purposes of advancing the Palestinian cause under the policies of the Quebec government. And they just held a press conference at which four of the organizers participated, including Zakia El-Masri, a Palestinian Canadian who ran for federal office under the NDP banner a few years ago. And I'm going to give you a sense of what they had to say, in particular in regard to their objectives and the performance of the Legault government when it comes to the human rights of the Palestinian people. And after that, we're going to hear directly from Zakia El-Masri herself.
It's really heartwarming to see how much support we've gathered in those last 4 days for our cause and the cause of the divestment. So just to remind us all, we are here as the Divest for Palestine collective, and we are asking for, first of all, the immediate closure, the immediate shutdown of the Quebec's office in Tel Aviv, Israel, so that there's no further economic cooperation and diplomatic cooperation with Israel. Also, we are demanding the Caisse de dépôt to immediately divest the $14.2 billion it holds in 87 companies currently complicit with violations of international law, colonization, and genocide in Palestine. Our struggle is in continuity with the struggle of the student encampment. So, as we're speaking, I want to remind us all that one company in which the Caisse de dépôt Québec invests currently $62 million is Lockheed Martin, the biggest arms seller in the world, which is also a company in which the McGill's University is holding $500,000 in investments, and from which the students at the McGill's encampment are asking divestment. So, we want to express our unconditional support to their struggle and all struggles across the world in order to end investments in the current colonial occupation of Palestine. So the silence and inaction of our institution has lasted too long in front of a genocide that claimed the life of 35,000 people, 35,000 martyrs, and more than 85% wounded in Gaza. How many deaths, how many unpunished crimes will it take until our institution take act and acknowledge the current ongoing genocide and put themselves on the right side of history? So from Turtle Island to free Palestine, we must divest now.
Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 il buio da partigiano. Che mi devi seppellire lassù in montagna. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao.
I'm here today with Zakia El-Masri, a Palestinian Canadian activist who has been a prolific voice for the Palestinian people here in Quebec and beyond, and she just participated in a press conference. And I want to first of all thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here, Dimitri.
So could you tell us, Zakia, essentially what are the objectives of this encampment?
Well, basically, we're asking something. Still, the fact that we have to ask for this today is mind-boggling, because we're asking for the Caisse Populaire to disinvest from a genocidal system, basically. Disinvest the money, our pension plans, from companies that directly are involved in the genocide against the Palestinian people. So the fact that we have to have a student-supported movement, led movement, to request this kind of disinvestment is mind-boggling. The Caisse Desjardins itself should look into where our pension funds are going and just choose to invest in an ethical way, which is something, there's a list by the United Nations published that requests companies, that puts a list of companies that we shouldn't have our investment in, that are not ethical. So why don't they just abide by that?
So when we were in the press conference, I asked you and the others spokespersons about the fact that, of course, there has been mounting evidence. Really, at this point, it's incredibly compelling evidence of a genocide, the worst crime that any state or non-state actor can commit And I asked whether, in the course of these 8 months of horror, there has been, in your collective opinion, any positive change from the government, the Quebec government of François Legault, with respect to the Palestinian people. And perhaps you could summarize your answer, which I found quite persuasive.
Dimitri, my father was a Nakba survivor, right? So you mentioned that the amount of evidence that we've been getting, we've never seen this before, right? We can't contest what's happening today. We simply cannot contest it. There's an ongoing genocide. War crimes are taking place. The International Court of Justice has issued their opinion. There have been a warrant of arrest warrants towards Netanyahu. So a lot has been going on the international scene. So within this ongoing genocide, the CAQ government, François Legault, decides to go ahead and open an office for Quebec. If that's not a complete disregard, one, for what's going on, the human suffering that's going on the ground in Palestine, okay? It's really a complete disregard. He's not listening to his own people on the streets in Montreal, in Quebec, all over, telling them, no, we do not want a representation of Quebec in a genocidal system, particularly while it's still ongoing. He is not hearing the people on the streets, and the numerous petitions. There are elected officials from Quebec who presented petitions saying this should not happen. This is not the place for Quebec to open an office. We should cut all commercial ties because of what's going. So even on an international positioning like situation, this should not be happening. So yeah, he's not hearing his own people.
So yes, during the press conference, Scott Weinstein of Independent Jewish Voices quipped that he found it remarkable that yesterday, Saint Jean-Baptiste Day, which is essentially, as I understand it, the national holiday of Quebec,
Yes.
that the police, publicly funded, were in the square yesterday defending this statue of Queen Victoria, the British monarch. And just before you and I began this interview, we were actually placed over there, and these police officers weren't there, and they showed up because they saw that we got within 4 or 5 meters, a reporter and an activist, of this sacred statue.
Sacred, that's
yes, yes. So my question to you is, at this stage, other than these displays of colonial protection, has there been any tension with the police? Are you getting any kind of communication from the police about how they're going to deal with this encampment or the city? What is your expectation about what's going to happen?
Well, as of right now, we're not sure what's going to happen, but I think also the student encampments have proven that their raison d'être, the reason why they're here, is one, to educate, two, to raise awareness. They haven't given nobody has any reason but to go towards these student encampments and to learn. This is why they're here. So their objectives are very clear, and there's absolutely no need to interfere. We are in a public space here. Students can come here. Citizens can come here to learn, to educate themselves. I mean, this is the minimum that is required. There's an ongoing genocide. People tend to forget that. And if the police presence is here, it should be to make sure that the students are protected, because we have heard of acts from Zionists who are trying to come to commit acts of violence, to provoke. So police should be present in order to protect those students who are doing nothing but practicing their legitimate right to do nothing but to educate people and encourage them to learn about the ongoing genocide and to learn about Canada's role in the indigenous genocide here, right? So this is something that we shouldn't forget. This is why defending the statue of Queen Victoria, I mean, do we know? Are they aware of what happened to the native population of Canada under the reigns of Queen Victoria?
Remarkable. It's remarkable. And just to point out what you said about the threats to the protesters, about 2 weeks ago, as I'm sure you know, the home of a Palestinian family in London, Ontario, was firebombed. $30,000 of fire damage was done simply because apparently they had a Free Palestine sign on their property. And there's plenty of other, even more heinous things that have happened in the United States south of the border. So one would certainly think that the police would be more concerned about the safety of these peaceful activists the statue of Queen Victoria.
Absolutely. And another thing, this is public funding also. So as taxpayers, we want our money to be, one, divested from genocidal states, right? But also invested in the right place here in Montreal, here in Quebec. So towards protecting citizens that are trying to raise awareness.
Well, thank you very much, Zaki. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Dimitri.
Take care. This encampment, by the way, was erected on the same square where the Occupy Wall Street movement established an encampment over 10 years ago. So this has quite a bit of resonance for that and other reasons in the anti-colonial struggle here in Quebec, and particularly Montreal. The activists thus far, there's absolutely no indication of any tension, any inclination towards non-peaceful conduct. They have defaced the statue of Queen Victoria with red paint, but this is a tried and true method and tactic of protest, of course, as many people who are active in social movements will know. And fortunately, to this point, there doesn't seem to be any significant tensions between the police, who are keeping a safe distance. And I'm told that up until now, there haven't been any pro-Israel counter-protesters who've descended upon the camp. But as I discussed with Zaki Al-Mazri, that's a concern that people legitimately have, that might unfold at some point in the near future. This is Dimitri Lascaris reporting from Square Victoria in Montreal, Quebec.